pleased to share that Canada intends to maintain its target of welcoming 485,000 new permanent residents in 2024.
When people's visas expire, Mr. Speaker, they are expected to leave.
Increasing the immigration levels, interestingly, will take some of the pressure off of the system. We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years.
Let's have an aggressive target to double our population. People are going to want to come here, and we want to embrace them.
Trudeau government's unrestrained open border policies, permitting well over 1 million newcomers each year into Canada, is causing significant challenges.
The Trudeau government is going to kick the students out of Canada. The solution is obvious. End the deportations.
I only care about Canada. I want to put our country first.
If any of you want to know who really make the decisions in Canada and who really pulls the strings in our country, after this week, it should be pretty clear. I'll give you a hint. It's not anyone you could vote for. You see, there's a reason why when it comes to immigration, foreign policy, and trade, there is absolutely no difference between the Liberals and the Conservatives in this country. That's because our elected leaders in this country take their marching orders from the United States, and they have been for a very long time now. Remarkably, after Donald Trump got elected again, Justin Trudeau, after years of open borders mass immigration, a complete experiment in this country that has had terrible results, now decided to start advocating for net zero immigration.
Between the amount of people coming and going, we'll effectively pause population growth for the next 2 years.
A stronger position on immigration than the Conservatives, and even crazier, the Liberals are now mocking the Conservatives for protesting against deportations and being soft on immigration.
They are expected to leave. If they are not, they will be removed. At the same time, the leader of the opposition is walking around with a member of Edmonton Millwoods promising not to deport people.
And after Donald Trump levied a 25% tariff threat on all Canadian imports into the United States, Pierre Poilievre shows up out of nowhere talking about Canada first.
I only care about Canada. I want to put our country first.
Something he hasn't done at all since becoming leader of the Conservative Party. In fact, nobody has pandered more to foreign interests and immigrant groups than Pierre Poilievre. He dresses up more than Justin Trudeau. But now, he is Canada first and Canada only. When Justin Trudeau was speed-running this country into a suicide mission through mass immigration, Pierre Poilievre wanted faster immigration. When Justin Trudeau wanted to restrict immigration, Pierre Poilievre said Justin Trudeau has broken the immigration system. Where the United States goes, Canada follows. And where the party in government in this country goes, the opposition party follows, instead of, doing their jobs and opposing the government. Donald Trump's threat of crippling tariffs on the Canadian economy has exposed a lot over just the past few days. Above all else, it has showed Canadians that when it comes to our political elected leaders, they are the same people wearing different colored ties. Before we get into the show, be sure to drop a like on this video, help us out by subscribing to the True North YouTube channel, and the comment question for the episode is this: is Canada just an economic territory of the United States at this point? Let me know your answer in the comments below, and let's get into it. Isn't it strange that when Joe Biden is the president of the United States, Canada experiences mass immigration at levels we have never seen before in our history? That our country goes through rapid demographic change, and that our economy suffers because of it? And then, when it looks as though Donald Trump is about to get elected, Justin Trudeau's government begins to start cutting back on immigration, begins to start restricting immigration. And then, immediately after Donald Trump gets elected, Justin Trudeau begins advocating for net zero immigration.
Between the amount of people coming and going, we'll effectively pause population growth for the next 2 years.
Here he was, a year ago, defending mass immigration.
I think one of the most important things that we need to understand is that immigration is a source of opportunity, of growth, of economic advantage for Canada.
The exact same thing was happening with the Conservative Party in opposition as well? No, surely not. Here's Pierre Poilievre today saying that he is Canada first. He only thinks about Canada, that we need to secure our borders, and that Justin Trudeau has broken the immigration system.
He's got to lift the production cap on Canadian energy. He's got to rebuild our military and secure our borders.
Well, here he was last year saying that we need quicker immigration. It's almost as if there has never been any difference between the Liberals and the Conservatives on immigration. Isn't that bizarre? Oh, it's the same at the provincial level, too. Here is Danielle Smith, not even a year ago, just about 6 months ago, saying she wants Alberta to double the population.
That's why I've said, let's have an aggressive target to double our population.
Here she is today, saying that we need to secure our border and get a grip on immigration.
Trudeau government's unrestrained open border policies, permitting well over 1 million newcomers each year into Canada, is causing significant challenges.
In 2022, Doug Ford wanted more immigrants in Ontario. He wanted more. Today, he wants us to control our border. Pierre Poilievre, in response to Donald Trump's threat of tariffs, said that the government needs to get serious about their plan to deport illegals in this country, which is funny because in 2022, Pierre Poilievre, along with other members of his Conservative caucus, was going around to Indian student protests and chanting, "Stop the deportations."
The Trudeau government is going to kick the students out of Canada. The solution is obvious. End the deportations, allow everyone who applied honestly but who was defrauded to continue to keep their work or study permit, and allow them to apply just like everyone else to become permanent residents.
So back in 2022, when our border was as open as it had ever been, immigration, according to the Conservative Party, wasn't fast enough, and we needed to stop the deportations. Today, Justin Trudeau broke the immigration system. We need to be prepared to deport illegals. And today, the Liberals are now undercutting the Conservatives on immigration and saying that, in fact, Pierre Poilievre is soft on immigration and was against deportations. Pierre Poilievre wasn't being honest and upfront with Canadians on immigration, wasn't giving us in opposition to the worst immigration we've ever seen in this country until Justin Trudeau and Mark Miller began to cut back on the system. How about foreign policy? You think there's any difference between the Conservatives and the Liberals on foreign policy? On our position regarding foreign aid? On our position regarding Israel and Gaza and Ukraine? Here's a hint, there is no difference. In fact, just like mass immigration, right now the Conservatives are demanding that the Liberals do more, send more of your money away to this foreign conflict. Just like they were telling Liberals to do more on mass immigration. When that issue eventually changes, which I bet you will be in a few weeks with Donald Trump coming into office, the Liberals are going to change and the Conservatives are going to say, "You're dragging us into World War III. There is basically no difference between the Liberals and the Conservatives on immigration and foreign policy. Oh, and don't just think that we are alone in this situation when it comes to our political establishment being identical to one another. Because the situation in the UK is the same. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has held a press conference accusing the previous Conservative government of running an experimental open borders immigration scheme. He's attacking the previous Conservatives for being way too liberal on immigration. The Labour Prime Minister is now talking like Enoch Powell.
Policies were reformed deliberately to liberalise immigration. Brexit was used for that purpose, to turn Britain into a one-nation experiment in open borders.
And the new UK Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, who was in government for this mass immigration experiment, is now talking as though she had no responsibility whatsoever in that issue, and they're now advocating for remigration.
The Conservatives are going to develop a detailed plan for immigration to put before you at the next election. Not the policies of Labour, which are going to fail, but a real plan that will, for the first time in 30 years, actually bring immigration right down.
Now let's look at this situation of Donald Trump threatening 25% tariffs on the Mexicans and Canadians alike over the same issue of illegal immigration and of drugs. We have been talking about this issue on Ratioed for a very long time now. Our border with the United States is wide open. This is a major situation. There are known terrorists using Canada as a launch pad to get into the United States. Canada, with fentanyl super labs, is now an exporter of fentanyl into the United States and to our allies. Our country, through Justin Trudeau's immigration plan, which received no opposition from the media or from the political establishment, has now become a playground for foreign spies, gangsters, and terrorists. So yes, this is a major issue, and the Americans have every right to tell us to get it under control. And if we do get it under control, that will be a great thing for all Canadians. But Donald Trump has levied the same tariff on Canada as he has on Mexico for drugs and illegal immigration, which is completely absurd. The Mexicans are the ones creating the drugs, selling the drugs, and smuggling millions of people into the United States. Now, what's even stranger about this is Mexico's new president, Claudia Sheinbaum, has the audacity to blame American fentanyl overdose victims for the fentanyl crisis, and not the cartels for producing and selling the drugs into the United States. Blaming the victims of drug overdose for the drug crisis, and not your own people for creating the problem in the first place. By the way, we just returned from El Salvador and we spoke with lots of Central American politicians. That is their new line, by the way.
Is because the United States or other countries want so much drug, and we're just in the way, and people are being murdered, kidnapped, or displaced by this problem that we did not create.
They are blaming Canadian drug overdose victims and American drug overdose victims for the drug crisis. It's our people's fault. It's the 40,000 Canadians that have died from fentanyl overdose. It's their fault, and not the fault of the Mexican drug cartels. Not the fault of the Chinese for manufacturing the drug precursor chemicals. And it's not the fault of any of the Central American countries that allow drugs to be funneled through from Venezuela, through their countries, and into our country. It's none of their fault. It's our people's fault. So not only has the Mexican president publicly blamed the victims of drug overdose for the drug crisis and not her own people, she's also threatened retaliatory tariffs on the United States. And yet Donald Trump yesterday came out with a tweet saying how wonderful of a conversation he had with the Mexican president. Justin Trudeau, on the other hand, has completely reversed his tone on immigration. He's now saying that he's going to shut down Canada's border and take the issue seriously, and he's likely not going to put tariffs on the United States either. But Donald Trump has not said anything at all about his strong relationship with Canada. What does all this tell us? It just tells me that domestic and foreign decision-making is not in the hands of Canadian voters. It's in the hands of the United States. Since the founding of our country through John A. Macdonald, our conservative establishment embraced the idea of protectionism, of Canadianism and not continentalism, of tariffs to protect Canadian industry, Canadian jobs, Canadian economic sovereignty and identity. Now, somewhere in Canada's history, around the 70s, the Canadian conservative establishment completely flipped on their long-standing economic policy. They became very liberal. They became continentalists. They advocated for free trade with the United States. Well, a viral video has resurfaced on social media this week in the wake of Donald Trump's threat of 25% tariffs. And that is the interaction between liberal John Turner and Brian Mulroney at the time in a 1988 debate on free trade with the United States, in which John Turner explains to Brian Mulroney the long-standing Canadian policy on trade and our decisions to build our country to reject the continental force of the United States. Take a listen.
Once a country yields its energy.
We have not done it.
Once a country yields its agriculture.
Wrong
Once
again.
a country opens itself up to a subsidy war with the United States
Wrong
on
again.
terms of definition, then the political ability of this country to sustain the influence of the United States, to remain as an independent nation, that is lost forever, and that's the issue of this election,
Mr. Turner, I today, sir, as a Canadian, believe genuinely in what I am doing. I believe it is right for Canada. I believe that in my own modest way, I am nation building because I believe this benefits Canada and I love Canada.
We built a country, east and west and north. We built it on an infrastructure that deliberately resisted the continental pressure of the United States. For 120 years, we've done it. With one signature of a pen, you've reversed that, thrown us into the north-south influence of the United States, and will reduce us, I'm sure, to a colony of the United States, because when the economic levers go, the political independence is sure to follow.
Today, it is hard to deny that Canada is entirely subservient to the pressures and whims of the United States. 80% of our trade is with the United States. We have not pursued a policy of trade diversification, leaving us as a nation entirely beholden to the United States. Policies like the increase of a carbon tax, as well as the decisions to embrace green, renewable technology and to shut down Canada's oil and natural gas industry, have had drastic negative impacts on our economy. And as Pierre Poilievre notes, and is correct about this, a carbon tax is essentially a tariff on ourselves. It should be removed without doubt. Furthermore, we put up interprovincial trade barriers in this country. It's remarkable that our government, both parties, are so fixated on free trade, but yet have not had the courage to rip down interprovincial trade barriers. Those should go. We should have pipelines from the east to the west coast. We should be supplying our natural gas and our oil to the rest of the world. Canada was not designed to be an economic territory of the United States. It was not designed to be a very large Puerto Rico. It would be nice if our politicians were always Canada first and didn't just start talking like that when the American boot is on our neck. You know, it was only a few years ago that many of the Conservative MPs would have taken issue with a politician who dared to say that they were Canada first and Canada only. They would have likely said, oh, that's a little too nationalist for us. That might be a little too racist to be Canada only. But now that it's politically popular to do so, just watch. They'll all fall in line. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for us today on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Harrison Faulkner, and this is Ratio.